Recording started here. There we go. Hey everybody, it's the 2nd of March, and welcome to the Unscheduled CEO. Timing was a little off on that one. Whoops. Press the wrong button there. This week I'm going to be talking about a new study on money and happiness. Can money make you happy? Happy money. Oh. So, hey everyone, welcome back to the Unscheduled CEO podcast on another unscheduled release date for the podcast. And as you can see, I'm getting more and more sloppy with it and more unscheduled, which is kind of what I expected to happen. So last week I said that, you know, the episode you were listening to could potentially be the final episode of the podcast. And I'm also saying that today. You never know. You never know when it's a little art project like this, whether or not I'm going to keep it up or whether or not it's just like just a little phase. Because what I'm doing usually is I'm tinkering. I'm just trying out new things. I'm just seeing what I enjoy doing, and I'm just like following a thread. And the thread right now, I really hope this is all recording. The thread right now is just trying out this unedited podcast approach, testing out all the equipment. And the funny thing is, you know, maybe this podcast will never become a thing, but just learning how to do all of this stuff is going to lead to something. It always does. Okay, so usually at the start of the episode, I give you a little update on what's happening with AJ and Smart. So yeah, since the last time we talked, we closed February. Can anyone actually say that? February. We closed the February numbers, meaning it's now March. It's March 2nd, like I said at the start. And so we had our best, February was our best month ever. No, that's not true. It was our best February ever as a business, and also our best non-sale month, meaning a month where there was no Black Friday sale or no crazy summer sale. So our best baseline month, which was very good. Best meaning most revenue, most profit. So that's good. Growth feels good, feels like progress. And as I talked about on the podcast before, money is just a great way to measure progress in a business. Whether you agree with that or not, that's just how it is. So yeah, closing out the month, we're running a couple of different things at the same time. So Facilitation Fundamentals had its like second cohort or third cohort or something, and that did quite well. Just trying to find like the correct funnel for that. Laura and her team are trying to find the correct funnel, the one that can be used over and over again over many years. And that usually takes quite a while to come to that version of the funnel that you can really just not set and forget, but you can always be confident that it's always going to bring in customers. And we're also talking about, this is I guess a tease, we're trying to figure out a way, like what if we would want to get facilitators in our community more clients, help them get their first client, help them get to, I don't know, 100K per month or 100K per year. What are the things that those people are going to need? So we've been talking about that in terms of a new product or a new service or a new whatever. Like what would we have to do to get facilitators to the point where we are, where it's relatively easy to get clients, because we know the demand is there for facilitation, but we also know that facilitators are not natural like marketers and salespeople. So we're trying to figure out like what are people lacking? And I'm learning this through 2 years straight now of doing coaching calls in our highest tier program called Workshop or Master. So yeah, that's something that I'm learning. And yeah, that's it basically. Just like and this podcast, it's definitely interesting. I definitely have really enjoyed the first 7 episodes. It's been a great little journal, but I am losing interest in it. For sure, I'm losing interest in this experiment. And so who knows, maybe if there's no episode next week, so the blog is sort of the central part of all of this, the howtobusiness.substack.com. So the Substack is where all of this content is coming from. And so if I stop doing the podcast and I do something else, then howtobusiness.substack.com is the place to go. Currently, yeah, that's where everyone should subscribe if the podcast dies. But it also could just become a more unscheduled podcast that I put out once a month or once a quarter, or who knows, just whenever I feel like it. I'm not going to stress myself and stick to any specific plan right now, because obviously this podcast is not a revenue generating project. It's just an experiment. So, and as part of this experiment, I like to sort of bring topics that I'm interested in, and I don't know. So yeah, I thought this would be an interesting topic. We can already jump straight to the topic today. I don't know what else is. I don't know if there's anything else to talk about besides topic. Let's jump to the topic. The topic today. Wait, I gotta hit my main topic music button. Oh, I don't have the window set up. Fuck. There we go. There we go. If you're on YouTube, you can now see what I'm talking about. So it's an article from the Harvard Business School called "More Proof That Money Can Buy Happiness or a Life with Less Stress." Thanks, Laura, for sending me this. Laura's sitting over there with her head. I'm thanking you for sending me this article. I'm going to read it now. Everyone, the feedback I've been getting from the podcast, Laura, is that people like when I read out an entire article badly. Yeah, that's what people have been saying. Yeah, it's what people like. All right, so we're going to look at this article here and we're going to talk about it. Again, it's called "More Proof That Money Can Buy Happiness or a Life with Less Stress." It's a common misconception that money doesn't buy happiness. It's just a very simple thing to say. It's an easy thing to say, especially if you're not pursuing a career that has a lot of financial reward. Then I guess that's a very good thing to say, because you then don't have to worry about the fact that you're missing out on something. But there are a lot of studies that push against that fact. And this is one of them. This is from, I don't know the date. Actually, I have no idea what the date is. 6 months ago. And I'm sure there's people in the comments here of this article that are already complaining about it. Oh, it's from 25th of January, 2022. It's from a year ago. So it's not about the bigger home or the better vacation. Financial stability helps people escape the everyday hassles of life, says research by John Jachimovitz. I don't know how to say that name. I know how to say John. Okay. When we wonder whether money can buy happiness, we may consider the luxuries it provides, like the expensive dinners and lavish vacations. But cash is key in another here we go. Cash is key in another important way. I'm going to press this button. Let's get some music in here. Money can provide calm and control, allowing us to buy our way out of unforeseen bumps in the road, whether it's a small nuisance like dodging a rainstorm by ordering an Uber, or a bigger worry like handling an unexpected hospital bill, says Harvard Business School Professor John Jachimovitz. If we only focus on the happiness that money can bring, I think we're missing something here. says Jakimovic, an assistant professor of business administration in the Organizational Behavior Unit, or the OBU, at HBS. We also need to think about all the worries that it can free us from. And I think that is a really big thing if you're someone who like, for me, I definitely didn't have a lot of money in my 20s because I was building this business, and now I definitely have a more I have more money now. And it definitely, these things, that's what people don't really realize. Just being able to get an Uber somewhere and not even thinking about it, that for me is one of the biggest parts of it. Just like, even just being like, I don't know, something has happened and we need to delay our vacation and we can't get a refund on the flight or something, and just being able to book another flight and not really stressing about it. It's more these conveniences or avoiding inconveniences that dramatically reduces stress. So I'm going to come back to that. So I definitely agree with this. So the idea that money can reduce stress in everyday life and make people happier impacts not only the poor, but also more affluent Americans living at the edge of their means in a bumpy economy. Indeed, in 2019, 1 in every 4 Americans faced financial scarcity, according to the Board of Governors. The findings are particularly important as we don't need to go into American economy stuff. Okay, buying less stress. The inspiration for researching how money alleviates hardships came from advice that, I'm just going to say John's father gave him. After years of living as a struggling graduate student, John received his appointment at HBS and the financial stability that came with it. My father said to me, "You're going to have to learn how to spend money to fix problems." The idea stuck with John, causing him to think differently about even the everyday misfortunes we all face. To test the relationship between cash and life satisfaction, John and his colleagues from the University of Southern California, Groningen University and Columbia Business School conducted a series of experiments which are outlined in a forthcoming paper in the Journal of Social Psychology and Personal Sciences. And I think for me, really, it was only really in 2022 and maybe mid 2021 that I actually started using my money in a way that was about dramatically reducing my stress, like taking Ubers, like ordering food more often instead of cooking, like having a cleaner. These kind of things are game changers. Like the things that I used to stress about, what am I going to cook today? Or, like it's pissing raining outside and I'm going to have to cycle or get to the train station. Just reducing those things have definitely overall reduced my life stress. So higher income, this is the next header. Higher income, and I know I'm not doing caveats anymore on this fucking podcast. It's funny when I post about the podcast on LinkedIn, I have people replying in the comments where it's like, they're the type of people you need to have caveats for every sentence. It's like, me saying, I think remote work could cause issues. And then someone being like, well, if you don't like remote work, you fucking hate blah, blah, blah. It's like, you obviously didn't listen to the podcast, but that's okay. So higher income amounts to lower stress. In one study, 522 participants kept a diary for 30 days, tracking daily events and their emotional response to them. Participants' incomes in the previous year range from less than $10,000 to $150,000 or more. They found money reduces intense stress. There was no significant difference in how often the participants experienced distressing events, no matter how big their income. They recorded a similar amount of daily frustrations, but those with higher incomes experienced less negative intensity from those events. More money brings greater control. Those with higher incomes felt they had more control over negative events and that control reduced their stress. People with ample incomes felt more agency to deal with whatever hassles may arise. And higher incomes lead to higher life satisfaction. People with higher incomes were generally more satisfied with their lives. And I can tell you, as someone who's I'm kind of like a hybrid, I walk between the worlds of people who are very high income and people who are within normal kind of everyday day-to-day jobs. And I can definitely tell you the people that I know with more money are less stressed and seem to be more satisfied. And when I say I spend a lot of time with them and I'm very sure they're more satisfied. And that's not what you generally hear, because you generally hear, or at least, I always had the impression, people with lots of money are always stressed and they're actually unhappy and they just buy stuff and it doesn't make them happy, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's probably the people at the extreme ends, the type of people who post on Instagram about their new Lamborghini. But the quieter people who have high incomes, they're generally quite satisfied. Even when the normal shit of day-to-day is happening, it is less stressful for them. So yeah, that is something I think, if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you're able to, the whole point here is like, for many of us, it is a choice whether we want to put effort into learning how to make money or not. And I think a lot of people are like, yeah, well, money doesn't make you happy anyway. And if you learn that it actually can reduce stress dramatically, and it does, then I think it even makes it more interesting to pursue high income skills, and making money is actually something you learn. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's this last part. Why cash matters. In another study, researchers presented about 400 participants with daily dilemmas like finding time to cook meals, getting around in an area with poor public transportation, or working from home among children in tight spaces. Oh yeah, that's another thing. More income also means bigger living spaces in more convenient areas. They then asked participants how they would solve the problems, either using cash to resolve it or asking friends and family for assistance. Here are the results. People lean on family and friends regardless of income. John and his colleagues found that there was no difference in how often people suggested turning to friends and family for help. For example, by asking a friend for a ride or asking a family member to help with childcare or dinner. Cash is the answer for people with money. The higher a person's income, however, the more likely they were to suggest money as a solution to a hassle. For example, by calling an Uber or ordering takeout. While such results might be expected, John says people might not consider the extent to which the daily hassles we all face create more stress for cash-strapped individuals, or the way a lack of cash may tax social relationships if people are always asking family and friends for help rather than using their own money to solve a problem. The question is, when problems come your way, to what extent do you feel like you can deal with them, that you can walk through life and knowing everything is going to be okay, John says. Yeah, so that there's then it goes more into the study. Yeah. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. It's not about buying happiness. It doesn't have to be about that topic. It's about reducing overall stress. And I can tell you, for me in 2022, a lot of stressful life events, which I'm not going to be talking about on this podcast, but just having cash to solve a lot of these problems made my life a lot less stressful. A lot less. So I agree with this as someone who has been on both sides of the income wealth coin. It definitely makes life less stressful. And I definitely think, especially if you're in your 20s and you're listening to this, I think it was helpful for me to listen to people like Ramit Sethi and Tim Ferriss and Noah Kagan talking about these things openly when I was in my 20s, because most people are like ashamed to talk about the money topic. It's just evil. But then you end up in that spiral of then oh, well, I'm not going to pursue it. And then, when you're in your 30s and 40s, you're maybe irritated that you didn't. I definitely know a lot of people who are irritated and annoyed that they didn't pursue money making and money making skills in their 20s. I'm glad I did, basically. Interesting article. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was. And I'm just wondering, is there anything else I wanted to go into? A while ago I wanted to talk about this, how to get what you want out of life, and then I went into the selfishness topic, but I don't think I'm going to do that today. I'm just going to keep it chill. So yeah, what are the things that I've learned from doing this what was my biggest if I'm taking a break from this podcast now, who knows, maybe there'll be an episode next week, but I have a feeling there won't be. I think my biggest takeaway from this entire experiment, or first of all, my favorite topic was the atomization one. So I think that was, what episode was that? So if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to the other episodes, my favorite episode was what one was it? Was it this one? Nope. Was it this one? How to figure out what you want to do in life. Is this the one? I think it's no, it can't be. It's episode 2. Yeah, episode 2. A new concept that will make you 23% happier. That one I think is the best episode overall in terms of the topic. It's this topic of living a more integrated life. And that's the one I've definitely, making that episode and kind of pulling together the articles for it and the research for it has had the biggest effect on me. So definitely check that out. I want to know also for you, what was the most valuable. Let me know at howtobusiness.substack.com, or you can post underneath the YouTube video, whatever works for you. I know this episode going losing steam fast, but that's quite okay. I'm just opening up the last episode here. Okay, so I'm trying to figure, when did that come out? 6 days ago. What date was that? That was, what date? Why doesn't it say on YouTube? Why doesn't it say the date? I'm trying to figure out which emails are new and which ones are not. So 6 days ago would have been the 23rd. I think 23rd. So 23rd, anything after the 23rd is a new comment. This is a disaster, isn't it? Because I've got a couple of potentially final emails to read of your emails. So let's have a look here. 24th. Yes, these are all new. Okay, let's go to your emails. I think that's a good idea. Let's go to your emails. 1, 2, 3. Johannes writes in. He says, "Hey Jonathan, this episode," and he's referring to the last episode where I talked about remote work. Hey Jonathan, this episode made me think a lot about how I feel in the remote first work environment I'm currently in. I concluded that I'd like to end this atomization of work experiment sooner or later. The integrated version of work in the office felt way better to me. The part I'm missing the most are the short talks with colleagues when you're able to naturally connect. In contrast to that, for me, many in-person work meetings today feel like the arranged dinner parties with friends you described in a previous episode. Many expectations and a lot of pressure. I'm wondering, how do freelancers prevent becoming a loner? Yeah, look, I think last episode I talked about this thing that yes, it's very convenient to work from home all the time, but yeah, it starts to become this extremely atomized experience, very non-integrated. You have to put effort into meeting people. You don't get that community bar filled up. You have to get it from other places. And yeah, when you actually go to the office, you end up in these very, finally when you go to the office on a specific day for a specific meeting, you don't even have time to get warmed up to the people again, and it becomes quite transactional. Yeah, and I know I posted this on LinkedIn, the episode on LinkedIn, of course, a couple of comments, exactly what I expected. But yeah, I regardless of what people think about the remote work thing, I think people in their 20s careers will likely suffer by not having a place to go to meet people in person regularly. Of course, I don't care. You can, like I said, I have one fully remote company. You don't have to. You can work from home all you want. I don't really care. It's more like a general piece of career advice that I think it is generally a good idea in your 20s to have people around you, colleagues, people who can become friends, people who can quit with you and start your own company. And I think those things are easier. They come up more often over lunch when you're going for a walk with someone from the office. These things are not going to come up over Zoom as often, in my opinion. And how do you do it as a freelancer? I think it's a good idea to freelance we have freelancers working at AJ and Smart. It's a good idea to freelance for a company that has an office that you can go into, especially if you're in your 20s. I think that's a solution. You ask them, hey, can I work from your office? Because that's how you're also going to get more work. If you're a freelancer, remote, it's hyper transactional. Hyper transactional. You're going to do the job for them. They're going to forget about you. Then you'll find another job. Whereas if you work in the office, you might meet someone who you start a company with. It's just selfishly, I think, better to have a physical space to go to. But you also want to look for a company that's not optional remote, because then the offices are kind of dead and it's kind of pointless anyway. That's my thoughts on that. Thanks for writing in. Jake Williams writes, this was a great episode for self-reflection. As somebody who is and was very pro-remote working, this episode really made me think about how my own relationship has changed. Once, I was the person in the office bouncing around the room, learning from anybody and everybody who gave me the time of day, organizing team events, and the last to leave the bar. Maybe not the best. I think it's a good thing. A lot of relationships start around being at the bar. Now I find that my relationship has turned, as you mentioned, very transactional. I wake up, do my work, get paid. Unfortunately, my relationships within the company have also become equally transactional. I think it might be time to fall back in love with work. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, Jake, I talk to a lot of people, even a lot of people working at AJ and Smart. Again, I'm in a quite a nice position of running two different types of businesses, one fully remote, one more hybrid. And a lot of people I'm starting to see a lot of people feeling kind of like a bit lonely, a bit depressed, a bit low energy when they work at home for long periods of time. But it's almost like so convenient and so, like, one employee at AJ and Smart says, like, it's so hard to get out the door and come to the office, even though I know it's good for me. It's the same thing as going to a gym. It's like just getting out the door and actually making it happen when it's not mandatory is so difficult. And yeah, it's interesting to hear employees telling me, yeah, like I would love to be here more often, but it's just too fucking comfortable. It's interesting. I totally get it. If you don't have to come to the office, then like, why wouldn't you just stay in your PJs all day? I get it. But yeah, look, my goal with this podcast and my goal when I'm talking to people is to help people kind of build satisfying careers. Oh shit, I just realized the YouTube version of this, it looks shitty because I've been resizing the window the whole time. Yeah, like, I think if you're looking for like life satisfaction and a good career, then fully remote working from a country location, unless you have a really integrated life with lots of friends there and lots of people coming and going, from what I've seen, people start to get a little bit weird and a little bit lonely. But then they also almost you adapt to it and adapt to a more hermity style life, and then it's really hard to get back to the non-hermity style life. Like I can tell when people are at this office at AJ and Smart who haven't been here for a while, they also tell me this, that they feel weird being around other people. I don't know if that's a good thing, but whatever, who cares? You know, I mean, I guess it's rare to hear someone saying, like me, I'm saying I benefit from the remote work thing as well. I benefit from people, from not having to have a bigger office, from being able to hire people all over the world. I benefit from these things, but the people themselves, I'm like, I don't know. Okay. And some people are like, some people have a better grasp of remote working than others. Some people have a better lifestyle setup than others. And of course, you can't generalize, but generalizing is way more fun. I don't know if I read this one last week, but I'm going to read it anyway. So David Finnegan writes in, I personally love the freedom of remote work, but I definitely wouldn't want to spend the rest of my life remote only unless I move to Bali or something. As you said, it's largely down to preference. Yeah. Well, I think, I don't know, somebody wrote on LinkedIn, like under this podcast, they were like, yeah, it depends on people's preference. That's actually not the point I'm trying to make. I think everyone will choose, the majority of people, especially over 30, will choose work from home. If they had to choose only office or only work from home, I think my feeling is the majority of people are just going to naturally gravitate towards the more convenient one, which I totally understand. I just don't think it's, I think the cons are not being talked about a lot. Okay. But the pros and cons aside, the question I keep coming back to is how much of the return to office drive is based on conventional knowledge. I don't even know, and I don't know whether it's better for the businesses or not. I think my big point in the previous episode is just how it affects the individual's careers. But yeah, anyway, kind of like when the high street retailers got... Yeah, actually, I honestly think in a lot of cases, remote is better for companies because it's cheaper. Okay, kind of like when high street retailers scoffed at the idea of online retail was a threat to their business, and now most of these high street retailers are owned by online retailers or dead. The conventional knowledge was wrong, and doubling down on their brick and mortar stores wound up costing them business. Not really sure if that's where we're heading with work. Maybe in person is really better. Maybe remote work is just waiting for the Amazon of remote work to emerge. I think there are going to be a lot of successful remote businesses. Absolutely. And many of them will beat the revenue targets of the in-person ones. But again, I think it's more the individuals are going to be, unless society changes and amenities and things are built in a way that working from home is actually less lonely and less isolating, I think it's going to be weird. Yeah, but really, thanks so much for everyone who wrote in. Thanks to everyone who's been listening to the podcast. You can catch me at howtobusiness.substack.com. I'll probably take next week off the podcast and we'll see if there's another one. Let's see what else. It's been really fun doing this podcast. It's been really fun. I really appreciate all the people who actually listened to it and took the time to comment. That's I really appreciate that. I hope this was a valuable season of the Unscheduled CEO. Maybe it also gave some people the I don't know, maybe seeing that you can do a podcast without any editing, with very little preparation, but that can also be somewhat entertaining and have a, relatively good listener base, gives people some inspiration to not spend so much time trying to make stuff and just start. Thanks to the Rodecaster Pro 2 for being the greatest and worst device I've ever used in my entire life. And yeah, I'll see you all. So I'm currently not using social media. So where you can catch me is howtobusiness.substack.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And I hope you have a lovely weekend, life. Thank you so much.